Hi, and welcome to Piano Teaching Success Q&A. I'm Gillian Erskine, your host for today's show, as we join piano teachers from around the world to be inspired, uplifted, and make our job that little bit easier as we explore our passion for teaching piano. Well, my very special guest today is Paul Myatt, and we're going to talk about duets and keyboard ensembles and the skill of collaborative playing. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Gillian. Great to be here.
Yeah. And well, we just love ensembles, don't we? There are just so many benefits to be gained from playing duets and ensembles.
Yeah, we love it. It's a real winner for our parents and students. They all really, really enjoy it. And, even if you're in a COVID situation, there are some ways that you can still do this. We're going to share a bit about that a bit later.
Before we go into the benefits of ensembles, let's look at a clip of a well-known piece called Royal March of the Lion, so that everyone knows what we mean by a keyboard ensemble. Anyway, let's look through what some of these benefits might be. So I think one of the ones that you really love is social bonding experience.
Oh, yes, the joy of playing with others. Yeah, I think it's just fantastic. I know I played in keyboard ensembles and also in bands, concert band at school and stuff like that. So playing with others was just such a wonderful thing while I was growing up.
And it's something that piano students really have an opportunity to do because,
Mm.
they just mostly go home and learn on their own, go home and practice on their own, and go and perform on the stage or in an exam situation on their own. And yet, music is best enjoyed with others. So it's kind
That,
of
that's right. Yeah. It's really important that children get to play with others. And, one of the great skills when you have been doing duets and ensembles then is that you actually know how to play with others, which is great for accompanying. So if you're ever, at school, kids are at school and have to play for the choir, they've already had some experience doing that.
yes, collaborative playing skills. And I think one of the basic things that everyone learns when we play together is rhythmic stability and flexibility. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, really keeping that constant beat and pulse and being in tune with the other person. So I think that's really important.
And in time, and being able to adjust so
Mm.
that everyone gets to play as one. And I always like to call this ensemble playing musical multitasking because it requires us to simultaneously play our part, follow a score, so not just only our part, but other parts within that score. So we're having to track
Mm.
vertically quite a lot. And then we have to listen to everyone else that's playing their part to make sure that we're actually in the right space in the score and we can see everything coming up. So we have to listen, and then we have to adjust. So that's like a cognitive processing ability required. And we have to do it all at the same time.
It's so wonderful for the brain.
Yeah.
That whole multitasking really helps us learn much more effectively.
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, there's those collaborative playing skills and those more refinement skills of adjusting speed that we talked about, but dynamics and deciding as a team what those dynamics will be. And sometimes the voicing or articulation, if it's voicing, it might be you're choosing, we're going to redo strings here, or we're going to have a clarinet sound there, or that kind of thing. Keyboard ensembles, we get to do that. So we get to experience the different sounds. And we also get to create, because all our whole goal is to create a unified play as one.
Exactly. And even in duets where there's going to be a voicing issue where, one part might be louder than the other part, making sure that the melody's coming out, but also tempo changes. I mean, they really need to be together. So that can be a challenge for some children
Mm.
to actually
Yes.
feel a tempo change together.
Yeah, a written and accelerator. And the other thing is ensembles, just like you can have those middle notes, or who can have the pedal.
That's right. Exactly. Who's in charge with the pedal? I don't want to play the primo part. I want to play the secondo part, so I get the pedal.
Well, I think that drove us to 2 pianos in our household because my husband plays, and so in the end it was just easy. And that, like, he just kept on hogging my notes because we make up our own 2 piano works at the same time. So it's like you're rushing over into my territory because I normally like the secondo part. Yeah. I'm happy to pay second fiddle to him.
Exactly. I suppose there's, of course, there's always the safety in numbers when you're doing performance as well. It's a lot easier to get on stage with someone else or with a group of children or group of people rather than just out there by yourself.
Yeah, well, we found, didn't we, in the Forte schools, because all our students play ensembles always. And sometimes you get the little, really shy performer that their first experiences will be in that ensemble on the stage with their friends, and they feel safe there. And then gradually over time, they do develop that confidence to come up and play on their own.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, that means teamwork
as
well. And so being part of the team, which is, those skills are they're lifelong skills, aren't they?
Well, it's not only skills, it's a pleasure. It's like ballet and soccer. Kids that learn ballet, soccer, football, all of those sort of team sports, they get that pleasure of being with their bodies. But it's also that kind of give and take as well. And practicing and practicing your part so you don't let them down. And maybe even sometimes covering up someone's mistake. Once they get really good. And then keeping on going, and don't even let that face look like it was a mistake. We smile. Keep going.
There's a whole heap of really important advantages to doing ensembles and duets. I suppose in ensembles also you get the experience of orchestration, so getting to hear all the parts.
And getting to know what part would suit what kind of instruments. Sometimes students will say, I think we should do it on this sound. You think, it's going to be terrible, but sometimes you'll go, all right, well, let's let that go, so they get no, that's not so good. And what sort of articulation is required, like strings usually, and say choir sounds so much better with an ooey gooey legato. Rather than a non-legato sound, depending. It just
absolutely. Yeah.
And then we also strengthen our students' learning, don't we? Because we can pair them up and have one student, particularly when we're in that learning process of an ensemble. I know that you've done this, and we're going to talk about this later, pairing students up so that one may teach another one if they've learned it quicker.
Exactly. And that just... when you want to learn something, if you have to teach it to somebody else, you just learn it so much more effectively. I've got a great quote that I'm going to share a bit later.
Yes. And of course, mixed abilities. Sometimes we think, we've got to find 2 students that are exactly the same level, or a group of students that are exactly the same level, but absolutely not. And it can be so valuable, such a valuable learning experience for everyone, as the more experienced student can inspire less experienced students, particularly if they're a bit older. I know the little kids always look up to the big kids, don't they? And then the less experienced student who's admiring the more experienced, but they get a little kick of, actually, I can do this as well.
And especially in families where you've got brothers and sisters, where they can play together, do a duet together. Brilliant idea.
Duets. And then we've also got Miss Dora. She has some multi-level, we did a show on that last year.
Yes.
Multi-level ensembles that you can look at as well. So there's so many ideas, so many ways, and so it's just such an invaluable experience for us to embrace in our for our students. So today we're going to share with you some easy to implement strategies for teaching and creating ensembles and duets with our students. So let's just to kick the show off, let's see an ensemble in action. These children are just quite little. They've only been learning for a couple of years. They're probably about 6, 7 years old. So, was that a graduation from a book from the end of the course? Because
Yes,
all of the parents were in the middle.
that's right. So it was at the end of our junior keys course. So the students had been learning about 2 years, and that was their graduation ensemble. And then they all got up and did a solo as well. So all the parents in the middle of the classroom.
Yes, because normally the parents would be sitting beside the students, so that's kind of removes that safety blanket.
Did you notice the little boy that had the cochlear implant? He was. He's the first student to be able to learn to sing and play music from cochlear. Had a cochlear implant, and I had cochlear came and videoed me one day to demonstrate, because I used to wear a device that would send my voice to his headphone through Bluetooth, and then he would plug into the piano so he could hear himself as well. So we couldn't move him around the classroom very much because he was attached to the piano.
And that little boy sings like a bird. You would never know.
Exactly.
He is amazing, little Quentin.
Ensembles and duets can be included in private lessons because you might not have access to a multi-digital piano studio or lab.
No, and these are really great for piano camps and holiday workshops and end of term breakup parties if you do those. And of course, these are all in-person events as we're talking about, but they're great for that, aren't they?
They are, but if you you could get access to a couple of portable keyboards, which are quite inexpensive, and if you set them up on a stand, and the children are standing up, you can fit 3 or 4 kids in a small space. They don't take up much room.
They don't. Well, let's look further at the benefit of social bonding.
One of playing music's greatest joys is to play together. No, I think it's so sad that private students, by and large, learn on their own, practice on their own, perform on their own, and they never really get to play with their friends.
It's so much fun, isn't it? Like soccer and ballet, or it's like soccer and ballet for piano, really. It's like the team and the troupe get to share the exhilaration of performing and the stress of getting it all back on track if it goes off, and then there's the chatter and the giggles afterwards when they get off stage. It's just priceless, really.
It is. And, duets and ensembles give students this opportunity to socially bond in a lesson, and it really enhances their enjoyment of playing. And of course, when it comes to performance, as we've said, there's safety in numbers. I'm going to share a video of one of my classes playing an ensemble. These kids are around 11 years old, and they're doing a grade 4 exam piece. This is an ensemble I made up from a Trinity College piece called Waltz Mystique. It's an elegant little piece by composer Ray Moore in 3/4 time, obviously being a waltz, and it has a clear melody, accompaniment, and bass line. And I just added a simple counter melody which contained a few extra notes, along with some supporting harmony to give the ensemble a little bit more of an orchestral feel.
Let's have a listen to that now. Tell us about those costumes. They're pretty cool.
They were very cool. Well, let me tell you about social bonding, because those costumes, can you imagine 8 11-year-olds making a decision, boys and girls, about the costume? It was the hardest part of teaching that ensemble.
And what were those little mask things all about?
Well, it was mysterious. So
Oh,
it was
okay.
Walt's Mystique.
Oh, we've got sort of some photos to share with you as well of some more costumes that ensembles have done over the years. As part of Forte, we have a Forte festival every year, and all of our Forte schools put on this Forte festival for their students. And one of the highlights is absolutely the ensemble concerts, with the students up on stage in their beautiful creative. I mean, gosh, these parents have also gotten very creative with making the costumes, and usually made.
It's just like ballet. So many parents are, doing costumes for ballet, or they're doing the costumes for the festival, so that the kids look amazing on stage.
Yeah, they did. They certainly do. Oh dear. So an ensemble can be made from almost anything, from almost any piece. It doesn't need to be an isolated activity either, can it? It can sometimes be an extension activity, or it can be a preparation activity for a new piece. So this could be a piece we've learned, and we're going to extend it by and have some more fun with it by making an ensemble and adding on to the parts we already have. It can be a preparation activity by just learning as a little part, and then eventually we can learn the pieces, a whole piece. Or it can be an isolated activity. It just can be a piece that we only learn purely as an ensemble. So you taught this one, the Waltz Mystique, actually was an exam piece that they were going to learn. So it was a preparation activity. Is that right?
Absolutely. So the melody, bass line, and harmonic accompaniment actually came from the score. So each of the students had a part to play. And the children who may not have been the best in the class got the easy parts, which was the bass line and the harmonic accompaniment, and then the sort of high achievers in the class got the melody and counter melody. But then they had to teach each other the parts, and that was where the real magic happened.
So they had to teach each other. So if they did the melody, they had to teach someone else the melody, and if they did the
Yes,
accompaniment, they had to teach someone else.
that's right. And the one of the boys played the bass line, or I think one of the boys, one of the girls played the bass line. Two of them played the accompaniment. So they had to teach each other in the one hand. So, like, what are the notes that go with the accompaniment? So it would work really, really well. And they
Mm.
played beautifully. And, it's so, I think the opportunity to then teach it to each other really was just so wonderful for their learning. And there's a guy by the name of Richard Feynman, who's a mathematician, and he says it perfectly. If you want to master something, teach it. The more you teach, the better you learn. Teaching is a powerful tool for learning, and it's just so true.
I think so. I think we all know that when we start teaching piano ourselves, how much better we get. And so when you did this as a preparation activity, how did you segue to what was going to be this future exam piece?
Well, they all knew all of the parts, so they were able to put it together. So they would have had that ensemble. Now, when that ensemble had no backing tracks or anything, all of the sounds were made from the instrument, so and by the children, and all playing together without any metronome or backing track or anything. So they were really together and really knew what the piece sounded like. So they're able to get those, the feeling of an accompaniment and a melody, which you need for this exam piece, so that the melody flowed over the top. And so they were able to put it together very easily. I've got a snippet
Yep.
of that ensemble that goes into the actual piece. I'll just share that with you.
That's great. And rhythm is the basis or foundation move of all music, and particularly ensembles, isn't it? And the basis of rhythm is listening. And we saw then no music, no conductor, they were using their ears big time.
That's right. They were playing as one, which is just so important, I think, for children who are doing ensemble or any collaborative playing.
Well, you do a lot of ensemble playing with your students and or your classes. Do you have any trouble with getting them to stay in time?
Well, they've been playing with backing tracks since their first lesson. And so backing track is just like a metronome. It's just a much more musical metronome. So they have been doing that from their very first lesson. So my kids, because of that, it's like they've always played with a metronome. So they're always in time. And
Well, not only always in time, they've always been used to listening to the
well,
backing
that's true.
and fitting into it.
Yeah.
So, do you have to teach in groups to do this?
Of course not. You can teach one-on-one, but bringing students together at the ends of lessons or for piano camps and things like that is a great opportunity. One of the things that you can do to help your students is use backing tracks, though, and it really makes a big difference because it develops their ear and their rhythmic development as well. So playing in time.
Well, let's look at how to make your own duet from almost any piece.
Wow, to create a duet from any piece, I always start with the harmony. A knowledge of chordal harmony is just fundamental for teachers. And we often don't teach this to our students because many piano teachers have never taught this in their lessons, have they, Gillian?
No, I don't think so. Well, we didn't learn that. Most piano teachers didn't learn this themselves. So a little bit kind of, let's not do
Exactly.
that.
When I went to university, I was a French horn major with a piano second study, and I had a piano class every week with the piano majors, and we had to do all this lead sheets and playing with chords, and we'd get a melody and have to harmonize it on the spot, and none of them could do it, but I could do it because I was an organist playing the organ at church every Sunday. And, playing the organ at church meant that you would get chucked something at last minute and you had to instantly harmonize it. So I got very good at playing chords. So I've always wanted my students to learn chords.
Okay, so how do you work out the harmony? If you've never really done this before, it's sometimes it's about kind of knowing what to expect or what you might expect in terms of chords in a piece. How do you do that? What's a good way?
I always have by my side a circle of fifths. Here's my circle of fifths for E minor, and here's the E minor scale it's based on. And so it makes it a lot easier to work out the chords. I'll use a piece called Andante by Cornelius Gurlitt. Let me just show you the sheet music. So you can see here, it's in E minor, and the first chord is an E minor triad. And so it goes E minor, C with an E bass, and then E minor, B, E minor, B7, E minor, finishing with a perfect cadence. When I created this duet, I put the melody in the right hand and then the chords in the left hand of the primo part. Let me show you the score for this duet. I'll just play you a snippet of this first part. You can see I put the melody in the right hand of the primo part along with block chords in the left hand. That will need to be played up an octave so the secondo part can play below middle C. And I split the left hand of the original piece between the right hand and left hand in the secondo part. The middle section is basically the same with the melody in the right hand of the primo, along with the notes from the score's left hand held in the primo left hand. To add some interest, I added a rhythmic ostinato, which is played in the secondo. Adding a melodic and rhythmic ostinato into the piece really helps the students stay in time. So it builds that confidence in time of keeping them together. And you'll notice that rhythmic motive comes in when the other part has long notes or held notes. So it helps them keep together and stay in time.
Yeah, there's something happening while they're having to hold it, because they tend to chop the time off a little bit, don't they? Like a long note, it's like, oh, let's move on to the next one.
And I know, I know there's, when back in the olden days when I used to teach just one-on-one lessons, that students would say, if I put them in for a duet, one and go, I'd be okay if it wasn't for her.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think the other thing is that the secondo part is so important because it is the foundation. So you can't always have the kid that's not all that good, like good rhythmically. You can't have them on the bass or on that, because otherwise it all falls apart.
Let me just share that with you. And of course, this piece is in ternary form. And when the A section returns, it's the same as the beginning. I added an introduction, which is played by the secondo part, to establish the pulse and prepare the student to enter on time. Here's the whole piece, and you can see the duet part printed at the top of the page. So if you are making your own ensemble, though, you do need to understand your harmony and chords. So I always use a circle of fifths like this to work out all the chords.
What you're likely to expect. Of course, sometimes they throw in an odd one. You go, oh, what was that? Generally, they'll stick to chord 1, 4, and 5, 7, or 2 and 6.
When I'm writing, I always remember my 16th century harmony rules from all that 4-part harmony that I did from all my theory exams, so that they actually sound good.
So you like to introduce the circle of fifths to your students at an early age, don't you?
I do, yes. And even that they may not understand it, it seems to sort of seep into their brains like osmosis.
They just see it and they see it and they see it.
They keep writing those chords. Even my one of my grade 8 students just got his 98%. He wrote chords in every single bar of his Haydn sonata and his Scarlatti. So it really did help him remember the music.
Yeah, there was no way that he was not going to be able to play those pieces by memory. Like when you know those chords and you know what you're doing, they're not just notes. It's not dots. These are actually form chordal structures, and oh, that's a 4 and that's a 1, because they know function as well.
Yes.
If he was ever in a trouble, he'd get himself out of it.
Exactly. Well, when he was 14, he played in an amateur Broadway show, and he brought a 200-page score to his lesson that he had literally gone through and harmonized every single bar. And he said, I can't read it fast enough, so I just put the chords above it. And I was just so excited because, he's learning how to, strategize to be able to do that sort of work. It was just great.
Yeah. Well, even my son Fraser, he did a grade 6, which is like quite an advanced level. And he decided about 3 weeks before the exam, he didn't like one of the exam pieces, and he decided to teach himself Go Tell It on the Mountain. It was like a theme of variations piece. And he was homesick for a couple of days, and he taught it himself. Well, come the exam, he was playing that piece. I could hear it from the outside in the waiting room. And anxious mother, get through there. And then I thought, oh my goodness, that's not the right thing. And that he didn't miss a beat. He just kept on going. But he made a muck, like a little mistake, but he just got himself out of it, and he got an A+ for that exam. Which is excellence in everything.
It's so important understanding that harmony, isn't it?
Mm.
And I'm that excited that we've got another accelerated success challenge where we can teach teachers how to use those chords.
Yeah, it's so good. Everybody really enjoyed that last time because we showed you everyone that did the challenge last time. If you did it, that was great. You can do it again. If you didn't do it, please join us because we did chords right from the very beginning. Because you think, oh, how can you do chords from the beginning? Oh, we'll show you how to. Yeah, we call it Accelerated Success Challenge, and it's on the 1st to the 4th of June. You can check it out at pianoteachingsuccess.com/challenge, and you can register there. Now let's look at a very simple beginner's piece and how we can create a duet from something as simple as Hot Cross Buns.
Well, Hot Cross Buns is a piece that every kid learns, I think. I was speaking to my colleagues in Hong Kong when I was teaching on Monday night and said, oh, do you teach Hot Cross Buns and do you have Chinese lyrics? They said, oh, no, we sing it in English. So I was sharing this ensemble with them and encouraging them to write their own.
How about you show us the duet that you've made then?
It's a really simple one. And you can see the primo part has the Hot Cross Buns up an octave. Now, you might not even teach this using music, but it's perfect for kids who are in a family together. One child can learn the part. You can even involve the mums and dads, because I wrote a vocal line, just a vocal ostinato, hot cross and 2 a penny. So mum, dad, and the 2 children could all play this together. It'd be a wonderful experience.
And if you got a little sibling, you could give them a little bit of a drum or a triangle or something.
Exactly.
Percussion parts. They always like to get in on the act, don't they?
They do.
Here's a clip of Hot Cross Buns.
Yep.
Hot cross, hot cross, hot cross, 2 a penny, 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 hot cross, 2 a penny. Hot cross, 2 a penny, hot cross, 2 a penny, hot cross, 2 a penny, hot cross, 2 a penny.
I like how you've got a second pair of hands.
The magic of modern science.
Oh dear. That's good. And we've got a duet that we can show everyone. Another one of those duets that you did a teacher workshop, I think, with Tim Topham. Back in the day when we could actually do real workshops with real people in the real room with each other rather than online. But anyway, they played Minuet and G, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's a lovely little arrangement. This one's available on blackrockmusic.com.au and blackrockmusic.co.uk, I believe. So let's have a look at that. And you can see the concentration going on there.
You certainly can.
That's terrific. Well, we're very excited that our stories of whole body learning And our story of Forte, really, and searching for a better way, it was my search for a better way, were accepted into the Power of Why book. And it's just become a bestseller. And it became a bestseller in pre-order, which is pretty exciting, I think. And it's been released now. I think it got released last Thursday, the 28th of April. And it's now available in print as well, like a real book, yes, with paper. So Glory and Paul caught up with Glory St. Germain, who compiled this amazing book.
Glory St. Germain, you are the busiest person in the world, I think, sometimes. You've got a series of books coming out called The Power of Why. And I am so honored to be in one of them, as is Gillian. And it's 21 musicians, why 21 musicians created a program, and why you should too. Tell me about it.
You know, I've always been passionate about sharing inspirational stories that help musicians know that, if someone else can do it, why can't I do it? So I put together this anthology, and I'm so grateful that musicians such as yourself and Gillian and, the others that are in the 21 musicians that really dig deep and tell their stories. And it's quite interesting. I think people are going to be really surprised, just to read these stories of inspiration. And, it's already a #1 international bestseller on our pre-order. So we're pretty excited about launching.
It's pretty amazing. So there's been some really interesting stories. I feel like I'm very boring, really.
Well, what's happened is you put it out there, and the universe kind of makes up its mind to share some things that are pretty deep. One of the stories is from a young man who was an orphan, grew up in an orphanage. And so how do you go from that to becoming so successful in creating a program? One of the stories is about a young lady who, was born in one country, moved to America, didn't even speak the language. And at the age of 15, her name was changed and she became another human being. Another story about someone who found out at the age of 12 they were adopted, and the torment that they went through just thinking, I don't belong here, and just pouring their heart out into their music and saying, this is what saved me. And the stories go on. And I was so moved as I was reading them. I can't wait to share them with the world. I'm sure you're going to get a little box of Kleenex out.
So when's it out, Glory?
Yes, so April the 20th, you can pre-order right now. The pre-order is on right now, and it goes live on April the 28th. So you can get it as an ebook on your Kindle. You can also get it as a physical book. So both are going physically on sale on April the 28th. And you don't want to miss it, because it's an incredible book. The Power of Why 21 Musicians Created a Program. And it's inspiring because you can too. So I hope it lights you up and gets you excited.
Can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Glory.
Absolutely. Don't forget to read Paul and Gillian's story, because they're pretty cool.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
This book's available on Amazon, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. Well, that's all we have time for today. I'd like to thank Paul Myatt, who's been with us today, sharing his expertise about ensembles and duets. And we're going to be back in 2 weeks' time with another great episode of Q&A. If you're watching us on YouTube, just click the like and subscribe button now to make sure you're notified when our next episode of Q&A is released. Remember to send us your questions for future episode, and I'd like to thank Paul, who's also been producing today's show, as well as being a star on it, and is responsible for all the videos and behind-the-scenes tech. We have a treat for you today. We're going to go out to an ensemble arranged by Bradley Eustace and played by one of Paul's most advanced classes. It's called In the Hall of the Mountain King. I know you're going to love it. On behalf of all of us, stay well, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.